Elaine? Fantastic. Okay, guys. So we're going to be talking about inventory strategies for restock limits and supply chain chaos. There's been a lot of craziness going on with inventory management. I like to say that it was a conversation nobody wanted to have when we started with So Stocked, and now everyone wants to have it. People, are crazy about the restock limits. Things go nuts in my inbox when something happens with restock. I wish I had a direct line to Jeff Bezos or whoever's running the show now, but I don't. We do get some information though that we can share that does work. And when we do get this information, we love to pass it on. So we're going to be talking about what you guys need to do to build systems, especially getting into fourth quarter, to build your inventory system so that you can maximize your profit and avoid stockouts and overstocking and the high cost that is inventory management these days. How to prevent some of the pitfalls that your competitors are going to be experiencing. So your competitors are facing the same challenges that you're facing, and if you can get these things dialed in the next month or so, that becomes very important, because if your competitors are not doing the same thing, you're going to have an opportunity to make a lot more sales because they stock out due to restock limits, due to supply chain issues, and you can potentially make a lot more in sales. There's a huge, billions of dollars projected to be sold online in the fourth quarter, a lot of it being taken by Amazon. And you want to make sure that you are there to collect as much as possible, even while your competitors are struggling. So that's kind of what we're talking about now with inventory management and what you can do to be ready for that. All right. So for those who don't know me, I'm going to go over a couple of things we're going to cover, and I'm also going to talk about a little bit my history and why I'm talking to you about inventory management. So we're going to cover what good inventory management systems are and how they can keep you in stock and improve profitability, about me, a little bit about my story, key inventory forecasting and tracking systems that you need for developing a good inventory plan, 3 triggers to pull if you do find you get into trouble with restock limits, to avoid your restock limits crashing. So if you stock out, that can be very detrimental. So what are those things that you can do if a stock out is inevitable, right? We're going to talk about a bonus tip that has been able to work for some sellers in terms of increasing restock limits. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to give a little bit of backstory about it, as well as, effectiveness and what we can potentially expect now from it. Now, the last things are essentially a solution. So I'm going to give you some tools that you'll be able to use to help you to implement these things while you go heading into fourth quarter. But I also want to show you a solution to get there much more quickly, much more easily. I know you've got a million things going on preparing, a lot of them having to do with marketing, and then just with making sure that your inventory actually arrives where it needs to be at the time that it needs to. So there's a lot of fires you're putting out, a lot of plans you're putting in place. So how can we, as quickly as possible, implement a system for inventory management? So type in the chat, let me know if that's okay with you. And then questions, if you have questions, type them into the chat as we go along, and we will have a time at the end to answer all these questions. And then, of course, like I mentioned, we're going to be giving you a special gift. So for those of you who stay on, you'll be able to receive that in an email very shortly after we end the webinar. All right, so a little bit about me, my backstory. I've been selling on Amazon since 2014. And in 2016, I became a mentor for Ryan Moran's Amazon group. He now owns capitalism.com and is very much in the e-com space, helping people to grow their businesses. One of the mentors who was in a mastermind that I was in was one of the founders of Zesty Pet, which many of you guys know exited for, I believe it was $620 million. So worked with Ryan back when everyone was first starting this Amazon journey, and then started speaking on stages about Amazon copywriting in 2017. Started speaking on podcasts and things like that. And so that's kind of how I got into the training and the speaking space and the speaking side of things, and really where I fell into my love of helping entrepreneurs. And so that's one of the reasons I really like what I'm doing right now. I still have my Amazon business, but I work very much and very closely with entrepreneurs to help them improve what they're doing. A lot of that has to do with inventory management. All right. And I see there's a hand raised. If you're interested in asking a question, it might have been a mistake. I'm not sure, but we'll save the questions to the end. You can also type them into the chat or into the Q&A, and we'll go from there. But we do have time at the end to address all questions. All right, so I wanted to talk about why I ended up, talking to you today about inventory management. My profits in, along the years had started declining. And in 2018, it really became an issue for me that I wanted to solve. I wanted to keep that margin, and it was shrinking. So I wanted to find out, what is it that is causing this? And before selling on Amazon, I had a background as an account executive at a financial management firm for 4 years. And so digging into the root causes of numbers was something that I was very experienced in. And so inventory management is something that I found was a big problem. I can't control things like, Amazon's fees. I can't control things like competition, but inventory management and running out of stock. I was running out of stock. I was overstocking. I was taking out loans and then getting too much stock with those loans and then having to pay interest on those loans. All of these things that were going on. And if this is familiar to you, if this is something that you are experiencing or have experienced, you can definitely type that into the chat. But these are things that became huge drains for me, and I wanted to solve that problem for myself. And so I started looking at what systems were out there. So when I started looking at systems, I found some of them are really confusing. The algorithms that were programmed into these systems worked for some of my SKUs, not for all of my SKUs. Some of them were too confusing to understand. I couldn't understand where the numbers were coming from. Some of them wanted to charge $2,000 per month, and that wasn't something that I was looking to do. I was trying to, rein in expenses, and went to my mastermind friends in the various different masterminds. And these are 7-figure sellers who would come back to me and say, we've tried everything, nothing works, we're back to spreadsheets. So when I did that poll earlier today about who's using spreadsheets, you're not alone. A lot of people are using spreadsheets. I talk to agencies, I talk to aggregators, bringing them onto the Restock platform, and usually where they're starting from is spreadsheets as well. So spreadsheets has been a very common thing, and it just shows us that there has not been a solution out there to really nail down, especially for the Amazon seller, how to control inventory management. So that's generally been an issue for a lot of Amazon sellers. So I tried to build something on my own, and essentially met someone who had a software that I was familiar with, who was ready to go into a new project. And so I convinced him that his new project should be an inventory management software for Amazon sellers. So for the past 3 years, we've essentially been sleeping and breathing Amazon inventory management. I've worked with hundreds of sellers on a one-on-one basis. The first year and a half of us launching the software, I talked one-on-one to 7- and 8-figure sellers, and even got to look at what their systems looked like, what was working, what wasn't working, so that we could build the most relevant systems into our software. And like I said, from that point, there was a point at which we got it right. And the point was when we noticed we ripped everything out, we started over from scratch based on the feedback of these 7- and 8-figure sellers. And then we started getting some great word of mouth. And we now work with Amazon masterminds, influencers, agencies, as well as aggregators. We have several aggregators that are using the platform as well. I've been featured on the AMPM podcast, 7-Figure Seller Summit, which many of you may have participated in the past, and various different events that I now have been attending and speaking at. So that's just, a little bit about me. the gift that I want to give you, and just to kind of pre-frame what we're going to be talking about and how to actually help you guys to leave with some action items and some tools that you can implement into your business before the fourth quarter, because I believe that any webinar you're on, you should be able to leave with, you know, some plan of action. But the things that I'm going to give you are essentially an inventory management calculator. This is something we'll go into a little more depth on, but it's essentially getting your marketing team and your inventory team to be coordinated so that your marketing team doesn't cause your inventory team to run out of stock. I'm very much in belief that that needs to happen a lot more. And so we call it our inventory minded marketing planner. We also have an inventory spreadsheet that will allow you to build out inventory plans. And then a workflow checklist. So that's looking at your marketing, your inventory, and your cash flow, and what are those pieces that need to all come together and be thought through so that you can make sure that all of those teams are working together. And lastly, we have an SOP, standard operating procedures, put together by Escala, a very well-known company in the Amazon space, put together the process maps and the step-by-step details on how to run a good inventory management system across multiple departments. It's something that's built out for SoStock specifically, but whether you use SoStock or not, it will be extremely helpful for you and for your team. All right, so I wanted to talk about the 3 pillars of inventory management. Inventory management can be extremely overwhelming. It can be extremely confusing. And so I've loved to find ways to distill it down to its essence, because it's actually pretty simple in its essence. We want to stay in stock. We don't want to pay too much in fees, and we want to increase our profitability. And so you generally need 3 things. You need to have your calculation right. You need to track all of your inventory, and you need to know how it's going to get there. Essentially, it's the how much. Calculation is the how much. Tracking is the by when. If you know where everything is, you can figure out by when do I need to send this. And then logistics is the how do I get it there. So that's just basically the simplicity. We want to know how much inventory do I need and by when do I need to have it sent, right? Or when does it need to arrive? So we're going to go into calculation first. And we're just going to talk about how to get an accurate calculation and give you an example of what can happen when your calculation is off and why some people continually stock out and can't figure out the reason. And also one of my favorite tools that helps you to visualize that, because it's a lot of math, it's a lot of numbers. And if you're a creative person, like most marketers are, the number side and the spreadsheet side of things is not your favorite place to live, right? So helping you to be able to visualize a little bit of that out is very important. All right, so the first thing that you need to be able to do is you need to be able to calculate your velocity properly. And what we use is something called daily adjusted velocity. Now, daily adjusted velocity is a little bit different than what some people do. We'll talk about daily velocity. That's essentially the average daily sales, right? So you have, say your average 100 sales per day. I sell 100 units per day of a particular product. That's your daily velocity. Daily adjusted velocity talks about adjusting that based on things such as you have a sales spike, that's not normal. You have a stock out, that's not normal. If you don't factor those things out of the equation, you can have a problem. So a daily velocity, which some people use, needs to be adjusted for that. So we use daily adjusted velocity. Even beyond that, some people are just looking at a time frame and they're just taking all of that. For example, I did 40 units of this product last Christmas, so I'm going to purchase 40 units. That can get you into trouble for the same reason. If you had stock outs or if you had sales spikes, you need to have the data analyzed well enough to be able to calculate that and make sure that you're not over or under ordering based on these anomalies. So let me tell you a little bit about how this works, the things that you need to factor in. So you need to factor in things like looking at averages, not looking at your total monthly sales. If you have last year's sales, you need to look at this. Optionally, if you've got a seasonal product, a summer product, or something that sells really well during the holiday season, you can use that data. But all in all, you need to include the factoring of sales spikes and stock outs, and also deep discounts. If you're launching a product and you do a bunch of deep discounts, that also could factor out. And so those are all things that we've built into SoStocked. I've built many of these, although manually, into the spreadsheet that I'll be sending you guys. It is a much more manual process, and we can't get as granular as we can when we pull your data from the API, but it does give you a starting point, especially for those who say have 1 or 2 SKUs and are not ready to step into a software. The other thing to factor in is your growth trends. So if your product has been growing, month over month or quarter over quarter or year over year, it's good to look at adding those growth trends so you can be sure to head in the right direction. If you're seeing a specific growth, calculating growth trends is very, very important as well. So just think of your daily velocity or your daily adjusted velocity as your true velocity. That's what we're trying to find is our true velocity. So wanted to get into, we're going to jump into a little bit of a case study, but just kind of to reiterate that if you don't use the proper calculation, it's almost as bad as guessing. A lot of times it'll work out, but there are those times when it doesn't. And those are times when it can end up costing you a lot in either stock outs or over ordering, especially if you're doing, say, an Amazon lending loan and they're charging you 12%. And then you have a huge payment that you can't make in February because you have a lot of inventory that you're holding based on bad calculations. Ask me how I know. This has happened to me in the 8 years of doing this business. You learn sometimes from hard knocks. And so it was something that I wish that I had learned a little bit, earlier, but, we all learn from our experiences. So this is why it's very, very important. And this is why you learn it's very important to have your calculations right. All right, so the case study. So we had a 7-figure Amazon seller in wholesale, selling in wholesale, come to us after years of using another software. And with the software that he was using for particular products, he was continually stocking out. And so over time, he had made his own spreadsheet with his own formula and would, for the most of his products, use the software. And then for his key products that he could absolutely not stock out on because they were his best sellers, he would use the spreadsheet. When he came into SoStocked, he was still stocking out using both of these methods. And when he put in all his data and we did a calculation, he was shocked that he was told to order so much inventory and what his daily velocity was based on the calculations that we were running. So the competing software was telling him that he needed to order 8 units per day. He was selling 8 units per day. His custom spreadsheet said he was selling 10 units per day. When he came into SoStocked, we analyzed and told him he was selling 15 units per day. Suddenly, he realized why he was stocking out. And when he looked at the math, which we have something called an inventory timeline where you can actually figure out the math. And that was a big problem for me with other tools that I've used in the past, is not being able to visualize out why all of this is happening. You just trust the magic formula, and order based on the number that they spit out. So we actually went through the math together on a one-on-one call, and he figured out what his true daily velocity was. And it revealed that he was actually much lower. And so this is what can happen when you have improper sales velocity. So this was the software that he was using. And so by day 4, he was stocking out, even using his custom spreadsheet, because he was doing an actual 15 units. So with 8 units a day, he was stocking out day 4. With 10 units a day, he was stocking out, looks like day 5. But then when you actually have the true velocity, and he was ordering every week, with the true velocity, you're able to avoid those stock outs because you actually have the true calculation. All right, and if you have any questions, definitely post them in the chat. If they are relevant to what we're talking about, I could take them up, but we will also circle back to Q&A at the end. All right, so stock out calculation. So I want to talk about why this happened. Why does it happen that you have this formula that doesn't work? And why do you keep stocking out, even though things seem to be correct? There are two things. There are two things that you need to weigh in with stock outs. One is, did you have stock? Did you have stock at all? And this is something that can actually be pulled historically from Amazon's API. So we're able to pull 2 years worth of data, and your API is able to give you that information. If you don't currently pull from an API, you should have what I call a stock out log to track your stock outs. And that's something that's built into the manual spreadsheet that I will be sending you. So if you are at a point where you're just starting out in your business and you want to stay with your spreadsheets, there is something that you can do, although, SoStock can provide that data for you if you are using SoStock, because I know some people on this call are. So the other factor is, was there an unusual interruption to your normal sales velocity? So this can be caused by lower sales, a day of lower sales, for example, right before you stock out. It could be caused by that low sales day, usually when you come back in stock towards the end of the day and you're used to selling 100 units and you sold 15 on the day you came back in stock, that type of thing. You're completely stocked out, but then Amazon finds that one random unit and sells 1 day of inventory, or you have a suspension. And if the program that you're using is looking only at, did you have stock? On a suspension, you had stock. So if they're not calculating the fact that you had this huge interruption to your normal sales pattern, if they're not looking at that, a suspension could be a 1 week suspension, and all of those days would be counted as in-stock days. So let me show you how this looks, because I'm all about visualizing these things. Okay, so most formulas will only look at, did you have stock? They'll only check number one. So this is the difference. If we had a program that was looking at whether you just had stock and counting the days of no stock as a stock out day, and then we have what we advise to do and what we do in SoStock, which is to count those large interruptions. So we look at that this day where you're usually selling 100 units per day, you sell 23 1 day, then you stock out, then Amazon finds 1 unit, then you stock out, and then you have 13 right as you come back in stock. Well, we're factoring all of those low sales days as stock out days, because you're usually have 100 units per day. So that's how you should be factoring your calculations. The difference that gives us in this example is that we go from 26 in-stock days from one side to the SoStock calculation, and what we support is 23 days of in-stock. And the daily average velocity is a 10 unit difference. So if you're ordering, you'll be short 10 units a day or 300 units a month. And if you're ordering for 3 months, that's a lot of units that you could potentially run out of. You could run out of a whole 2 weeks of inventory, especially with the chaos that we have going on now along the supply chain. All right. So once you have your calculation right, it's important to make sure that those little details get into your calculation. And that's something that I call inventory-minded marketing. Your marketing team has to be responsible for getting data to your inventory team, and your marketing team has in the past not really spoken to your inventory team, and that has caused problems. When I was interviewing the hundreds of sellers that I talked to, and I talked to PPC agencies, I talked to a lot of different types of sellers, and would ask, have you ever stocked out due to a marketing plan? And a lot of times they would say yes. right? Things like coupon codes, doing a coupon discount code via email, and then the next month you're stocking out, raising your PPC ad spend, and then stocking out. These are problems that can be avoided if you have a way of connecting with your inventory team to coordinate that. So that's something that I'm providing in the follow-up email that I'll be sending out. Is something called an inventory-minded marketing planner. So we're going to get into some of the things that inventory needs to send marketing in the future in a few minutes, but I wanted to show you exactly what I mean by the marketing team. Marketing teams have to become more responsible for the entire product catalog. Now more than ever, now that we have restock limits, it's more important than ever. And we'll talk about restock limits, and we'll talk about some strategies for restock limits later, but it's one of those things that you have to, if you're marketing yourself, you have to take that responsibility. If you have a marketing team that you work with, you have to make sure that they take on that responsibility, that the marketing of the entire product catalog is their responsibility. It used to be that we could market our best sellers and just wait, for the rest to sell out. And Amazon has actually backed us into a corner with the restock limits so that that can't happen anymore. Okay. So this is the marketing planner. This is the inventory-minded marketing planner. And these are some of the things that should be provided to your inventory team. Your inventory team should know how you want to calculate your velocity, right? Do you want to look at the average of the last 30 days, the average of the last 60 days, a combination? Do you want to, if you're launching a new product, you have to give them your manual velocity? Do you want them to use last year's sales data? These are all things that are baked into SoStock, but they're also baked into this spreadsheet as well. So then you have your trends, right? Do you have any trends that you want to use? Do you have any additional sales growth? Do you plan to do a PPC campaign that will increase sales by 10%? That's something that you can provide. And this planner has a video tutorial, so I don't expect you to know exactly how to do all of this right now, but the video there will teach you how to use this sheet. This just gives you an idea. Lightning deals and other sales events, if you don't program those into your calculation before you order, this will be a problem. Putting this data in there will also show you whether you can afford that or not. Is a lightning deal going to create a stock out? Sometimes that happens. I was working with a client who sent out an email for Mother's Day, and then by Father's Day was canceling all his lightning deals that he had planned because he hadn't factored that email campaign into his equation. It was just this thing that he did on a whim, right? Then you have seasonality. Are you expecting sales to increase at all? And from what period of time to what period of time? What is that range that you're expecting? Those should all go into your marketing plan. So just on the last point on the subject of velocity, this was one of the users that we worked with that uses SoStock and basically said ignoring stockouts so that sales velocity does not decrease was a very important feature to add to his business. And then that it makes sales velocity much more accurate. It's something that makes sales velocity much more accurate. That's the first step of your calculation. That's the first thing to get. That's the how much. Sales velocity is the how much. And so if you get it wrong, you get the how much wrong. And a lot of people stock out or overstock because they get the how much wrong. So he says, we've already made thousands of dollars more in profit thanks to SoStock. And so, really it's all about getting that right, because if you get that wrong, especially if you have a long lead time, it's very difficult. If you shortcut yourself from getting the proper amount of inventory, it's a lot harder to bounce back from that. All right, I know we have some questions. I'm gonna peek in. Okay, so we're gonna get to some of these questions. Looks like the questions here are gonna be saved to the end, but I will definitely get to those. Yes. Okay. So we're going to jump into tracking. So those are some of the main points in terms of calculations. The next step is tracking. And once you have your tracking down, that moves you into the position of being able to answer the question of when, right? Calculations helps you with the how much. And then once you get to tracking, that helps you to finish that picture to get you to when. By when do I need to order, right? Those are the two main points, how much and by when. That's all you really want to know, right? So here's tracking. So when we started bringing users into Restock, we got the question over and over again, which was just as important, which was, where is all my stuff? I am overwhelmed with all my suppliers, all my SKUs, all my orders. I don't know where my stuff is, how much stuff is at my warehouse. How do I know I can trust my warehouse? That's a very important point. Some of us are only trusting that our warehouse is keeping track of it, and we're not keeping track and making sure that they're not losing our inventory. We had in the past, I'd say 18 months, 2 different warehouses who told us they had less than they did, a warehouse that said they had less than they had, and a warehouse that said they had more than they had. But because we were tracking everything in Restock, we could let them know this is what we have and this is why you need to go check again. And in both instances, they said, you're right, you know, we found your inventory, or you're right, we corrected our records because we sent this shipment out. So it's very, very important that you know where all of your stuff is, and there's a way to track all of that. And it can get very overwhelming. So we're going to talk about a few of the vital things that are needed to track your stuff, because if you don't have a proper accounting of where your stuff is, you could either over or under order, or place the order at the wrong time. All right, so order tracker, that is important. That is essentially, what are all your orders and at what stage are they? What's in production? What is en route and how is it traveling? We have these little boats here. We have, you know, where is it going? It's going to the warehouse. We also have little Amazon symbols if it's going to Amazon. Each of these is color coded to a particular supplier. This is something we took we were inspired by Trello. It's called a Kanban view. And so we were inspired by Trello so that you could be able to see all of your stuff and where it's going, right? Then you need to know what you have on hand. And so this is just a general accounting of all the inventory on hand at FBA. Is there anything inbound to FBA? Is anything at your warehouse? How much? So that you have a running view of all of your inventory altogether. Then all of your shipments, give you a quick view of all of your shipments and when they're arriving and what is in them. Then warehouses, this is broken down into all the different warehouses that you have and what inventory is in each of those warehouses. Then you need to track orders within the next 30 days. So this is something to keep your eye on. Do you know what you need to order within the next 30 days? It's important, especially if you have to get funding. If you don't have the cash flow and you need to use a company to get funding, you need to have enough time to make that happen. So looking forward and looking ahead and making those plans becomes very important. All right, we're going to talk about something called Reorder Point. And don't worry if this is a lot, because I know that it is. I try to make it as simple as possible. And these concepts are fairly simple if you can, really kind of sit with it and look at how it applies to your business. But I will be sending out the replay, so you guys will be able to view the replay. So Reorder Point is the when, the when that we're looking for. When do I reorder? How do I actually calculate when to reorder? So first you need to make sure that you're keeping track of all of your inventory. And once you know that you're keeping track of all of your inventory, that you've got your daily adjusted velocity, there's actually a very simple formula for Reorder Point. So what that formula is, it's buffer stock plus lead time equals Reorder Point. And we're going to go over what buffer stock and lead time are and how to figure those things out. So we've got buffer stock plus lead time equals Reorder Point. So buffer stock is also called safety stock. I like to think of it as the extra bit of gas in your tank when you are running out of gas. You get this little light and it says, hey, you're running out of gas, but you still have time to get to the station because there's that little bit of gas in the bottom of your tank. That's what buffer stock is. It gives you this alert that if anything goes wrong, you have a little bit of a cushion. So there are some guidelines about buffer stock that we're going to talk about, but essentially it's, you know, if anything goes wrong, which a lot of things have gone wrong in the past year and a half in terms of logistics and restock and supply chain, this is your safety. All right, so the longer the lead time, usually the longer the transfer time and the higher the buffer stock. Now, I understand that Amazon has created limits, which makes it very difficult to have a high buffer stock at FBA. That is and has been a problem, but you can split your buffer stock between FBA and a third-party warehouse. And that's what a lot of people have been doing more recently, is to split up their buffer stock between those two things. Now, we prefer to set buffer stock in days rather than in units because there's a fluctuation that occurs. So maybe during Christmas, I have, you know, 200 units a day in sales for a product, and then off season, maybe I have 75 units a day. That is a fluctuation. So I'm going to need a different amount of buffer stock for different periods of time. Something that maybe covers me for 30 days on my off season could cover me for 10 days in my high season. So I always recommend doing buffer stock in days. And that's something that we have set. You have the option inside of SoStock to do that. Now, the best rule of thumb is a minimum of 30 days of buffer stock at Amazon. It does get a little bit difficult for some people to be able to do this, especially with overstock. Overstock just took a big hit in terms of the amount of inventory that they were allowed to have. But if you're able to do this, if you have the room to do this, 30 days is a good buffer stock minimum. And most people, if they're able to, are doing closer to 45. Just because Amazon's been taking forever to check things in. And we're going to talk about what to do if Amazon is taking forever to check things in. What are those things to make sure that you don't miss sales based on Amazon changing the restock limits policy or being very slow with their check-in processes. Okay, so lead times and transfer times. This is the other side of the calculation, right? You have lead times and transfer times. Lead times I call, you know, the time it takes to get from your supplier to its final destination. So that could be your warehouse or that could be Amazon. Transfer time is the time it takes to get from your warehouse to FBA. So we'll just refer to them as lead times and transfer times, and they're very similar. It's just where's the starting destination and where's the ending destination. So here is a good rule of thumb to make you understand your lead times. So you need to know how long does it take to get to from one point to another. And I would recommend talking to your suppliers and to your freight forwarders and your third-party warehouses and getting actual lead times. What can you expect, especially now? You should be prepared. Your stuff should be hopefully on the way now or soon. And what are those backup plans? And we'll talk more about backup plans as we get into the logistics side of things. But here's just an example of reorder points. So we look at 30-day buffer stock. So we had a 30-day buffer stock, and then it took 60 days for us to receive our product. Our lead time was 60 days. That would be the reorder point would be 90 days before stock out. So 90 days before you run out of stock, you should be placing that order. Right, so one of the ways to do this, and one of my favorite aspects of, and I should have put a picture up here, but one of my favorite aspects of SoStock is what I call the inventory timeline. And essentially that's every day of the year, we have what inventory we have and what is happening with that inventory. It still gets going down every day that we make sales. It's depleting by that daily velocity. Then inventory is arriving, then we're transferring inventory, and we can then figure out what is the stock out day. What is that day that I would run out of stock if I didn't take action? And from that day, go 90 days into the past and figure out what is our reorder point. So that's one of the things that Restock does, and one of the things that I recommend if you're having a hard time understanding your workflow, to build out an inventory timeline. So here's a case study. So this case study was very interesting, and there was a seller who came onto Restock and had a pattern of ordering too late. So there was a lot of air shipping, not much in the way of ocean shipping. It was just cutting it too late. We're going to stock out. If we send it by ocean, we're going to put it on a plane, and that became the habit. So once they started using Restock, putting in buffer stock, figuring out what their true lead time is, what their reorder point was, and getting alerts via email, they stopped having to do those expensive shipments. And I was shocked by the actual costing involved and what they actually saved. So having set everything up, they used to pay $1.20 per unit, and then moved into paying about 45 cents per unit, saving 63 cents per 63% in their total shipping costs. The calculation of what savings that was on an annual basis was $150,000 in shipping costs alone, just for being able to put those systems in place. So I know that we sometimes have to do those things, sometimes have to do the emergency express shipping, but the more you can prevent it, the more money you keep in your pocket, and that really changes the game. What could you do with $150,000 in monthly, say, marketing dollars? You could put it into marketing, into investing in new products. There's a lot that you can do to help grow your business rather than just giving that away in shipping costs. All right, so another client had the same problem. So really got real-time visibility, no more expensive air shipments. So he avoided a lot of stockouts and stopped using spreadsheets, stopped getting into those errors with the manual updates, and really has been able to streamline business. All right, so we're into the final section, the final pillar, and you guys are fantastic. You're really sticking with me, and again, I'll be sending out the support, the gift to you, which will help you to get some of these concepts put into action. All right, so logistics in a post-COVID world. So we're going to talk about the global supply chain and Amazon's restock limits and how it's affecting all of us. I don't think I have to really belabor the point. You guys are all feeling it. I see it and hear it, on Facebook and in my inbox every single day. And so we basically are going to talk about what are those things that you need to do to rearrange your logistics to prepare for any problem that may arise. We can no longer trust that Amazon is a reliable partner in terms of logistics for us. We can't trust that anything is reliable. So we have to have many different plans and many different ways of continuing to make sales. It's extremely important. And even large sellers that I talk to, the majority of the time they stock out, it's because they don't have backup plans or they don't have backup systems. So we're going to talk about what I like to call the golden rule regarding logistics. Okay, so Amazon's new storage type limits. So Amazon never intended to be a storage facility. They always intended to be a distribution center. And what I mean by that is that they don't want to hold your excess inventory. They want your stuff to come in and they want to push it out. So that's a distribution center. It's something, that distributes your product. So they really believe in what the term is called sell-through. So we're going to talk about sell-through and how Amazon looks at sell-through and why it is the #1 metric for Amazon inventory. So Amazon actually, if you look hard enough, you can find the definition of sell-through on Amazon's website. So Amazon says that sell-through is your FBA rolling 90 days of sales of items that are shipped and sold over 90 days. So if you divide the average number of available inventory, you take the number of sales and divide it by the number of units that you had held in the fulfillment centers during that time, you will get your sell-through number. So they're looking at 90 days. They're not looking at the entire year. They're not looking at 30 days. They're looking at a rolling 90 days. So this is what that looks like. If you wanted to break down the math, you could have sold 9,000 units in those 90 days and only kept 3,000 units on average at FBA. That would be a monthly turnover where you're turning over your inventory every month. And the number that you would see inside of Seller Central in the inventory performance section would be 3, right? So if you're wondering where Amazon comes up with the calculation, that's where they come up with that. If you had 9,000 units in sales and you were holding 9,000 units on average, that would be a quarterly turnover and your number would be 1. So that's very important. So if you look at your number, now you know what Amazon is doing to calculate that number. So if you have a 1.5 or you have a 2, the number should be higher, right? The number should be high enough. But you know, some people are still stuck at 1, and Amazon is trying to force that and trying to move stale inventory so that you can get into a better position with turnover or sell-through. So utilization is that bottom part of the calculation, right? We're all familiar with utilization. We know that Amazon looks at our restock limits and then looks at how much we have, which is our utilization. And that is how they base how much we have left to send into Amazon. That's the way that they base that calculation. So utilization is calculated. You've got FBA available inventory, all incoming shipments, right? And unfulfillable inventory. So until that inventory that's unfulfillable gets removed, it's going to be counted as part of your utilization. And something that is very interesting that just recently started, I was working with someone on their inventory and clearing out some inventory. You know, you can do removal orders. And so we tried to do a removal order, but Amazon had a portion of that inventory, that excess inventory, a portion of it was actually being held. And they said, this inventory, this 144 units of inventory is not able to be removed. It's in a warehouse that cannot remove it. So my thought is that there are warehouses that are so busy right now that they're just saying, we're not doing anything but what we're doing. We're not doing any removal orders. We're not going to take the time to remove that inventory. So if you have inventory that you want to be removed or you want to be sold through, it's important to do that right now, because a month from now, Amazon might be so busy that the inventory that you want to remove, that excess inventory, they might freeze it, like they did a portion of this inventory with this person I was working with. So that's a very important thing to start looking at for your business. All right, so you can see this bottom calculation, average units available equals average utilization. So that's the relationship with sell-through. So what your utilization is and what your sales are, those are the two things that can help you to control your sell-through and improve your sell-through. So we have something called min-max restocking. And min-max restocking, it puts you into, it allows you to set your buffer stock, but also your max stock. So if you want to calculate the minimums and the maximums, it will give you a good idea of the sweet spot, right? Don't send in too much, but don't send in too little. And so some of the benefits of doing this is essentially you're optimizing your inventory levels. The buffer stocks protect you from stocking out, and the max stock protects you from high storage fees, restock limit issues, and it also allows you to delegate these tasks to your VA. So we've kind of got a max stock that's already been predicted for us. Amazon has given us a max stock. They say you can send no more than this amount. The max stock tool that we have in Amazon works with what we just added, which is a restock limits tool, to help you to calculate which of your SKUs need to have inventory sent in and how much without going over your max ship quantities. So you're kind of forced into a max stock situation already, but with Amazon, this will help you to, if you implement a min-max restocking, it will help you to better automate and send inventory in. All right, quick case study. I wanted to go over real quick. One of our sellers posted improvement on using Restock, the improvement to his inventory performance index score. He was focused on sell-through. So when you focus on sell-through and you work on handling your excess inventory, handling your improving your sell-through and improving your turnover, you can actually improve your metrics. And these are the things that Amazon looks at when it kind of scores you and decides whether, to give you more restock limits or not. So you can see it from the last 4 months, he had gone from 1 restock limit to 1 to 2. So he had improved, he had doubled his sell-through on his account, his entire account. He had doubled his sell-through. All right, so I wanted to go into the logistics and restock limits, and what are those things that you should be putting in place so that you don't stock out come Christmas time, right? That's the thing that I think we're most anxious about, is what's going to happen with restock limits, what's going to happen with logistics. Amazon just pulled this lever. They have these guidelines on what they use to calculate restock limits, and then they have this lever that they pull where they can basically go against everything that we know about what influences restock limits and decide that they're just going to drop your limits. They're just going to tank your limits all of a sudden. And about 2 weeks ago, people woke up to 40% cut, 70% cut. I've heard as much as one person reached out and had an 85% reduction in restock limits. So what do we do in those cases? There are a couple of things to do to increase your restock limits. But I want to talk about also the things to do if you can't get your restock limits increased. What are those things to put in place right now so that come Christmas time, you don't end up with a bunch of inventory, a bunch of bills coming in to pay for that inventory and not having been able to sell it during the biggest sales season of the year. So that's what we're going to be focused on for this last point. So I mentioned the golden rule of logistics. My golden rule of logistics, having lost inventory based on Amazon not checking my stuff in, based on delays at the port, etc. The golden rule is to never let anyone have all your stuff, right? Whether it's Amazon FBA or your ocean freight, never let anyone have all your stuff. So if Amazon has all your stuff and they decide not to check it in, you're basically screwed. You can't do anything. And we've had people, they send whole containers and they said, Amazon has a whole container and it's been 3 weeks, it's been 4 weeks, it's been a month and a half, and they haven't checked it in. So what do you do in those situations? My stuff is on a boat and it's sitting in the port. It's been sitting in the port for 3 weeks, not able to get docked to port. These things are happening. So how can we make sure that we have a plan to navigate our way around it and not be one of those people like your competitors will be that is stuck in that situation? You want to be someone who can pivot when everyone else is stocking out. Here's one of those things, the painful cost of stocking out. So beyond all of this chaos, Amazon is now, especially with consumables, sending product or sending your competitors your business. This product is often stocked out. So try one of these other competitors. So don't stock out, but if you do, there's switching to FBM. Don't let Amazon be your only distribution channel is the point, right? So creating a backup distribution channel, that's the key. FBM sales count towards your restock limit. What that means is that those sales will contribute to your restock, and so that if you stock out and you're continuing to sell through FBM, your restock won't tank. So that's important to know. So have a way to do FBM. We have fulfillment centers that we can recommend if you're interested, but if you don't have a backup fulfillment center, that would be something to get in place right away. You can also use excess inventory from other SKUs. So this becomes important. Run flash sales on your other products. If you stock out of your top seller, run flash sales on your other products that you have excess inventory on until it gets back in stock, so it can use that velocity to help to keep basically keep a placeholder, a velocity placeholder for top sellers. And then you can always do removal orders. Removal orders help to clear that space, but flash sales are much more beneficial. Flash sales are beneficial because they clear space, but they also improve velocity. And those are two things that Amazon looks at to calculate sell-through. So it improves your sell-through a lot faster and easier than doing a removal order. But removal orders are very important if you can't, if you don't have the time for a flash sale, or if your flash sales are not being effective. So a couple of ways you can do removal orders. You can remove it, you can dispose of it, or you can do Amazon's liquidation program. And that's all through the removal order section within Seller Central, right? The other thing you can do is you can do your own flash sales with coupons and emails and that type of thing, or you can do lightning deals, or sorry, outlet deals. Amazon has something called outlet deals. If you go to your inventory page, you can see if your product is eligible for outlet deals under the excess inventory tab. Okay, and then the last thing, this is important. Borrow your sales velocity from other channels. So if you're selling through, say, Shopify, and your bestseller goes out of stock, maybe you switch your fulfillment to Amazon for Shopify for all of your other products that you're selling. This may be more impactful for people who are selling more off of their website, right? So this may not be a huge impact for you, but it is something that you can do. MCF stands for multi-channel fulfillment, and Amazon is very interested in having you fulfill from Shopify, from Etsy, from these other channels through Amazon. And so what they are doing is that these sales, even though they're not coming from Amazon, those sales also count towards your restock limits, right? So this is something that as we're leading up to Black Friday, this is something that you might potentially consider to boost your restock limits. All right, real quick, the reports that inventory should provide to kind of cover all of this restock, right? The restock, the negative impact of restock limits are when you stock out, when you have too much inventory, when you have too much, when you have slow sellers that are not moving very quickly. All of those are going to negatively impact your restock limits. So even while you don't want to stock out and marketing should give a plan to inventory, inventory should give these reports to marketing. Stock out risk report, right? When are you going to stock out? Is there risk of any of your products stocking out? And how many days will you be stocked out? How do you prevent a stock out? What are those things that you can do? Customizable, sorry about that. Sorry, something seems to be going wrong with this. All right, if you have questions, type them in the chat or type them into the Q&A. I'm going to be figuring out. Looks like some of my slides are, there we go, okay. Some of my slides were missing. Okay, slow seller report. So slow seller report helps you to put a range into what is a slow seller, but not quite something to liquidate, right? Maybe it's below 20 units a day, but above 5 units a day. Whatever it is for your business, you should have a slow seller report that you're tracking, say, on a weekly basis. You have a liquidation report, and that report would be anything that's below, let's say, for example, 5 units a day. What are those products that are needing to be liquidated right away? What about FBA overstock? What do you have that's, let's say, 90 units or 90 days of supply or more at Amazon? These are all things that your inventory team should be tracking and constantly pushing on a weekly basis into the face of the marketers, so the marketers take responsibility for helping the inventory team to push these out of Amazon for your restock limits. Okay, bonus tip. So I know that you guys are all interested in that tip for restock limits. This is something that was discovered, I would say, beginning of August. And this is something that has been working for several sellers. Not all sellers have had success with this, but enough have had success with it that we know that this is a successful tactic. We're getting towards the end of, I believe, this, what I think is a promotional period. So your success with it may be less, but it's not impossible, and it's worth a try. As we learn more about this program, we'll continue to share more, especially as we move into the fourth quarter. But I had a friend of mine who's been a user of Restock for the past 2 years, over 2 years that we've been active. He's helped us with a lot of building of Restock's tools, and he woke up to his inventory restock limits doubling. So then he found this email from Amazon, and they said, yes, we did double your limits. You're going to have that valid until September 30th, which is, coming to a close. The multi-channel fulfillment team wants you to plug in your other channels. And if you need more, increase in your limits, a higher increase, email us at multichannelfulfillmentsales@amazon.com and send us your projections. I'm not going to get into all the details of the theory behind why I think they're doing this. I'll provide a link to where I go into detail about this, but this is something that has worked for other sellers. So we had announced this, and then other sellers started posting, worked for me, doubled my limits. I did this 4 weeks ago, and they gave me the exact limit I wanted. Then 90 days later, they said they gave me more. I requested more, and they gave me more. Someone else said that they tried this in the UK, and it also worked in the UK. So a 50% increase. So this is working. I also talked to another group that I work with, and several people had it work for them. So this is just to say, this is something that's been happening. I believe the multi-channel fulfillment team is very much pushing having people move into multi-channel fulfillment, plug in their Shopify accounts, plug in their Etsy accounts. So this is something that you could potentially try. It might be a little bit harder to get into this program now that we're coming towards fourth quarter, but it's something to give it a shot, and I will continue to report on this particular program as we learn more about what Amazon is willing to do in terms of restock limits to have sellers get involved in this program. All right, so again, the special gift, we're going to give you a DIY spreadsheet for your inventory-minded marketing planner, the workflow checklist, and then all of our SOPs to coordinate everything so that you can get your plans in place before the fourth quarter really kicks off. So now that I've shown you the systems that you need to implement your inventory plan, I want to show you an easier and a faster way. And today is actually a very special day because we have a special program that is wrapping up. We've been doing it in some iteration for over 2 years, and this is a little more than 24 hours before we wrap that program up. So definitely, if this is something you're thinking of implementing, I'd love to share that with you. I believe we got some things mixed up. Hold on a second. So, okay, so I'm going to talk about Restock. Restock, if you are a Restock user, thank you guys so much. I love you guys from the bottom of my heart. You guys have helped to make Restock what it is with your feedback, with your coming on board to the software. It's been an amazing journey, and we're moving on into an even greater position. And so we're wrapping up this program that we have. But here's some of the things that some of our amazing users have said. Forecasting, hands down, most accurate I've come across in 7 years. Restock solved 99% of our challenges. I'm getting rid of spreadsheets forever. We make much more money. We're in stock all the time now. My weekly inventory from hours down to minutes, that is no joke. Just tons of things. This is reviews on the App Store. You can go on the Amazon App Store and check this out. Tracking all phases of our inventory, 1,000,000% recommend. Truly listen to our needs. That's very important to us. And then responsible and knowledgeable support team. Our team is amazing. You get one-on-one coaching and support, and can jump on a call, and we'll help with your setup. We'll train your team. Just kind of staying in tune with how do we continue to connect with you guys as sellers. Tool I couldn't live without. So all of the things I've talked about, logistics aside, since we don't own a logistics company, but all of the things in terms of the tracking, in terms of the calculations, in terms of all of this reporting, this is all in SoStocked.com. It's lifetime pricing. We have lifetime pricing for a very short amount of time. And what that means is essentially that for $79 a month, you lock in your price. It never increases. Once we go into our tiered pricing, if you have or plan to have ever tens of thousands of orders on a monthly basis, your price is going to be much, much higher. So as your business scales, the pricing will scale with it. And what we have for the next 24 hours, and then it's gone forever. This is 2 years we've offered some sort of lifetime pricing, $79 a month. And then essentially you get one-on-one onboarding, and you get white glove migration. So we'll take your data, and we will put it into the system. We'll work with you to put your data in the system. If you sign up today, that's on SoStocked.com. If you go to SoStocked.com, sign up for $79 a month, you'll see the tiered pricing presented. We'll be ending this promotion the next 24 hours, and then you'll see tiered pricing. If you have, let's say you have, you have 10,000 orders, you'll be paying, hundreds of dollars on a monthly basis. And so we would love to have you on board. If you're looking at this software, I would suggest signing up for SoStocked and then reaching out. We're happy to help you. We're happy to bring you on board and to make sure that you are feeling good about going into the fourth quarter. Let's go into Q&A. I know that we had some questions as you guys think about. I'm going to drop in the chat the SoStocked question. So let me go ahead and let me go ahead and make sure that you guys have the link, the SoStocked link. And we do have some questions in the chat, and we do have some questions in the Q&A as well. All right. So we've got, what's the best action to take for overstock units? Okay, so the best action to take for overstock units, oops, that didn't work. The best action to take for overstock units, it depends how much time you have. Really, it depends on, how much time you have. I would say if you can, the best action is to do some sort of a flash sale. So whether that is dropping your price or doing an outlet deal, running coupon codes, running a Facebook ad to a reduced price listing, those would be effective. Those things that would be effective in moving or selling through your inventory quickly. It could be at a loss. It could be, at a slight profit, whatever works for your business. But if you can sell through quickly, if you have an emergency where you can't get inventory into Amazon for your best selling products because of the overstock, at that point, I often recommend remove the inventory with a removal order, or and then that'll happen is they'll send the inventory back to you. You can relist it later or send a little bit of it in later and sell it later, or you can liquidate it. There's a liquidation plan. If you never intend on selling this, if it's a product that, the trend is just gone, it's like, something that's not very popular anymore, I suggest liquidating it. But if you think you can sell it, go the removal route. All right. So someone else said, you mentioned flash sales. How are those different from lightning deals, outlet deals. So yeah, so flash sale is just a general term. A lightning deal would be a type of a flash sale, and so would an outlet deal. I refer to flash sales as just anything. So a flash sale could also just be an email that goes out to your list with a coupon code, could also be a flash sale. So it's just kind of a broad term. And then out of the 3 discount methods, what one proves more effective? So I think we covered this question. If there is any other detail to this question, I think that go ahead and clarify. And that's David. Okay, cool. Yeah, so David, go ahead and clarify if I didn't answer your question fully. But again, if you can do something, what we're trying to do is we're trying to do something that removes inventory and increases sales velocity. So lightning deals, outlet deals, any sort of flash sale on your own, those all increase sales velocity and remove inventory. The removal orders and disposal orders and liquidation orders for the liquidation program, those remove inventory, but they don't increase they don't increase velocity. So those things are not as effective towards your restock limits, but sometimes necessary when you can't get rid of the inventory or you don't have enough time and it's causing you to lose sales because you can't send in inventory from Amazon. Okay, someone said, did you mention how to calculate buffer stock? So yeah, so calculating buffer stock, like I said, I like to do it in number of days, and I like to do it with, we have some articles that go over this in more detail, but just basically buffer stock, 30 days is a good rule of thumb. And so if you know what your daily average adjusted velocity is, you can figure out, okay, what's my adjusted velocity? Oh, it's 100 units. I want 30 days or I want 45 days. Then you do 100 units per day, 45 days, and that would be your buffer stock, right? That's the simplest way to do it. And usually, depending on how you're sending your inventory to Amazon, you would want to have, 30 days or 45 days, and you should generally have an idea of how long it's taking Amazon to send your stuff in. And so just to kind of touch on that, the idea of sending all your stuff, some of the problems that people get into with this breaking of this rule of don't let anyone have all your stuff. First of all, not having buffer stock, that's a problem. But let's say you had everything, you put everything on a boat and you sent that boat off to the UK or the US or wherever, and it got delayed. That's all of your stuff. And if you don't have enough inventory, you stock out, there's nothing you can do. So what we've started doing is sending all of our stuff on the boat, except holding, let's say, a month or 2 at our suppliers. And if we have to air freight some extra inventory, we will do that. We'll take on the cost if we have to. If we don't, if the stuff arrives just fine on time, we'll put the stuff, the remaining stuff on the next boat, and then it'll be fine and we'll save costs. But we have it just in case. I'm willing to spend money on a little bit of air freight just in case to prevent running out, because that, you lose sales and you have a heavy impact on your restock limits. Same thing with Amazon. Don't send everything LTL in one truck. Then they drop your stuff off, the trailer sits there, doesn't get checked in for weeks, or they say they lost it and then they find it after Christmas, which happened to me one year. Reserve some of your inventory at your warehouse and keep that inventory for 3PL, for SPD, for small parcel delivery. So if you're sending everything in less than truckload, reserve some for small parcel delivery. That's these cartons. You put a couple of cartons in, those check in so much faster. So if you have problems with Amazon checking your stuff in, send some stuff small parcel delivery, and that will check in a lot faster. We're looking at, usually it has been a week or less to check those in versus the 3-4 weeks, sometimes up to 6 weeks with the less than truckload. Lastly on that, always having FBM, set up a fulfillment center. We talked about it before, but if Amazon, isn't checking in your stuff, you can still take sales from Amazon, fulfill them through FBM, and those are your backup plans. So we should have a backup plan and a backup plan for your backup plan. Okay, David said, any suggestion of warehouses that say this warehouse does not accept removal orders? I know you mentioned this is a problem. It's funny, for the removal orders, I have a call with a company, Backtrack. I haven't talked to them yet, but he specializes in removal orders and I believe liquidations as well. So I'm going to be talking to him soon, and hopefully we'll be able to get some information out about that. And you should be able to have your warehouse, and you should be able to program your removal orders to go to a different address. So, you know, if you want, like I said, I met him at Prosper. I haven't vetted him yet, but Backtrack is the company. And so it might be an option for you to check out. And when I speak to this company, I will push out more information as well. Because I think that's a real problem for some people. And if you can recover some of those costs through liquidation, that becomes a bonus. You mentioned that you're sending those sheets for us to look at, analysis and forecast to understand how it comes together. Yeah, so those sheets that I'm sending you, the sheets are gonna have a video. And so you'll be able to open the sheet, create your own copy, click on the video link, and I'll explain how each of the sheets are broken down and how to use them. So when I send out this email later today, you'll be able to see how those work. Okay, let's see. Do I have any other questions? Okay, cool. I think I had a couple of questions over here. Can Restock migrate data on one platform or for all of our clients using Seller Central? We can do, so I believe what you're asking is, there's a couple of ways. We don't have a dashboard for you to see all your clients at once, but if you have one login, we can link your account, your one login, to multiple client accounts. And so you can toggle between, kind of like Seller Central. Seller Central doesn't allow you to see all of your clients on one dashboard in Seller Central, but you can toggle between the accounts that you have access to. So we do that as well. You can toggle between the accounts that you have access to, so that you don't have all this logging in and logging out and having to remember all sorts of passwords. So each client has their own account, but you log in. And the rest of the question was, our data is that I'm pulling data. Our issue is that I'm pulling data for inventory from various Amazon accounts. I'd like to see the data merged on one platform. So I hope that explains it. I don't see your name here. It says anonymous, but reach out if you want more information. We can do a little video to show you exactly how that works, and make sure that you get that answered. Okay, Diana asked, I'm currently using Restock for my inventory. Do you have plans for Walmart and 3PLs? Yes, so right now we are in beta for Shopify. So some of our users are actually using the Shopify beta. And so if that's something that you want to, you can contact helpme@sostock.com and request to access the Shopify beta. And then once we have the Shopify beta, we'll be getting into some other integrations. Walmart is on the very short list, right? We have a short list: Walmart, eBay, Deliver, and also ShipStation, which integrates with a lot of 3PLs. So that was the long answer. The short answer is yes. And I think, okay, and then we have another question. How about, what about how to calculate inventory if the client doesn't have historical data on Amazon? So if there's no historical data on Amazon, if they have a new product, then you can have a manual override. You can say, okay, for this product, we think we're going to sell 10 units a day. And then once that data starts coming in, we are then able to switch to using that data. So there is an override if you have no historical data on Amazon. And we can obviously, if there's a lot of data, if it's a lot of SKUs, you can send us data, and our team will actually help you to set up forecasts and set up the systems using your guidance and your spreadsheets that you send us. And then Warren Perez, he asks, is there a way for days until stock out not included on order or in transit quantities? I only want to show available quantity. Yeah, so in those reports that I showed you, those are customized reports and every column can be removed. So you can add, I think we have about 80 columns with data, and you can add or remove or hide each of those columns. So if you don't want to show certain things on certain reports, you can hide those. I hope that's the answer to your question. Maybe I didn't understand the question, but that's how I understood what you were asking. Leslie asks, can you give an example of how to toggle between FBA and FBM? I just signed on with a new warehouse, but I don't understand the process of using FBM. Yeah, so we can reach out to me after this. We can definitely show you. It's essentially creating a new condition. And you can probably find this on a YouTube video, but it's creating a new condition. So you have your FBM listing, and then you go to the edit section, and then you will select create a new condition and or create an FBM listing, and it's 2 listings. You'll have a different ID for it, and it will be just it will be on the same listing, but it'll be a different offering. So reach out if you need help with that. We can probably get a video for you or find a video for you, but that's something that is kind of outside of the scope of what we're talking about here, but I'm happy to help you if you can follow up and reach out to us. And you can reach out to me. I'm available on sostock.com/connect. So any of my socials are there, my email, so you can reach out to me there. All right, and then how do you calculate out of stock? Might have jumped on a little late. I'm not sure. We did talk about how we calculate out of stock, but we look at, were you stocked out, and then was there a huge dip in your velocity, right? So on the replay, you'll be able to see that it was towards the beginning. We don't just look at your out of stock. We also look at heavy dips. Okay. A couple more questions. Please give us the link for the new pricing. The new pricing, we don't have it up quite yet. If you're interested in it, I can provide it for you. We are getting it organized and put up as we speak. So we will have it soon, but I am happy to share that with you via email if you want to reach out to me. But it will be tiered pricing, and we'll look at, say 1,000 if you're selling 1,000 units or less. If you're selling, between 1,000 and 2,000, it'll be a certain price, and it'll roll up from there as your orders. It'll be based on orders as your orders increase. So it'll be on the site pretty soon, but we are working madly to include it. So let me go ahead and again share the link to SoStocked. If you have any other questions, reach out to us. We're very happy to answer them. And we hope that you join us. There's a lot of people that are using SoStocked now. We've just been blown away by the support, and been blown away by what we've been able to create. And it really is a lot to do with the open communication that we have with our sellers, the people that have been with us for the past 2 years, the people that have kind of come on board with this early pricing. And it is really the end of an era. We will be moving, like I said, into this tiered pricing, but it's kind of a thank you for being willing to go on that journey with us and help us to build a tool that really works for the needs of sellers, and was built by, I'm a seller myself, like I said, and was built by other sellers giving us their feedback. So we'd love to have you. If you have any other questions, let me know. But this is the last little chance to get on board while you can with the $79 pricing. All right, thanks so much. I don't think we have any other questions. I know that you've stuck it out with us. Went over by a little, but if you have any other questions, reach out to us. You can either reply to the email that I'm going to be sending out in the next an hour or so, or you can reach out to me, like I said, sostocked.com/connect. For technical questions, you can reach out to helpme@sostocked.com. All right, thank you guys so much. And yeah, if you have any other inventory questions, feel free. All right, and I hope you have a great today. And Erica says, thank you very much. Fantastic. Thank you guys. All right. Bye.